Hello, dear World of Warcraft friends! Welcome back to a new video on my channel. Today the second season of World of Warcraft Midnight begins, and that's actually a good reason to take a quick look back. We want to take a look at how the first season of World of Warcraft Midnight performed. For that, we'll take another look at all the statistics, player participation, and so on and so forth. We see that in the last 1, 2, 3 weeks, Midnight actually hasn't lost that many players anymore. In fact, by the numbers, it was very close. Let's compare it with the other seasons from The War Within. We'll take a look at why that is in this video and see what it looks like in percentage terms. In the end, in terms of player loss, it's still the second worst season of the entire World Soul Saga. But, as I said, let's take a closer look at the whole thing. If you want, feel free to leave a like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Let's break the 38,000 mark, and with that, let's get into the first table. So, you can see it here. These are the player numbers from all the weeks we've had so far. The first season of Midnight started off very, very strong, as you can see, and then dropped off quite a bit. The actual player numbers are shown on the left side. Here you can see, in the 20th week, we still had 400,333 active runs. In the first week, it was 3.385 million. So in the end, over these 5 months, we lost just under 3 million Mythic Plus runs. That's quite something, but the best way to compare it is by looking at the percentage of players. We can see it. War Within, Season 3, had 237,000 runs in the last week. Season 2 had 2,425,000, and Season 1 of The War Within had 505,000. So in the World Soul Saga, only the first season of The War Within was better in terms of pure player numbers or pure run numbers. However, all these seasons also started with significantly fewer players. And for that, the table on the right is quite interesting. Compared to week 1, we had 87.2% fewer runs. In The War Within, it was minus 90% in Season 3, minus 78% in Season 2, and minus 79% in Season 1. So purely in percentage terms, only one season lost more players than in Midnight. That's already pretty telling that it started off really strong, but then, it dropped off. Basically, that's normal. That in a seasonal game, we always lose more people towards the end. That's just the nature of it. I already said, for me, the first season of Midnight was actually very, very unpleasant. But I think that because Blizzard introduced things like the bonus roll this time, people got their gear faster than they might have otherwise. And you could really notice that at this point. But it gets interesting again if you look here. From about week 13, or at the latest by week 15, the player numbers were relatively stable. And much more stable than in the weeks before, when things were basically just going downhill every week. And there we can see that's when the boost slowly started to take effect. We even had an increase of over 35,000% in the week from 17 to 18. That was around the time when it became clear when patch 12.1 would be released. And funnily enough, we can see that apparently a lot of players thought, okay, look, it's almost over, so let's go back in and farm. And according to Icy Veins, a lot of players also treated themselves to a boost. That's a claim from Icy Veins. Unfortunately, they didn't specify what their reasoning is based on. But let's just leave it at that for now. In the final week, we had an in-time percentage of 93.8%. So almost 94% of all runs were in time. That's also pretty strong. The best dungeon was Pit of Saron with almost 95%. And the worst one, in quotation marks, Maisara Kavan Maisaraka, had a 91.95 in time percentage. So we can see it towards the end here, people really flew through. But it remains the same. Pit of Saron and Windrunner Tower were the easiest and also the most popular dungeons, just like Skyreach. People ran those quite a lot. And finally, here we can see the distribution by Keystone level. And there too, we saw an extreme increase in level 21 keys this week. And I think they didn't write it down, but I believe that's the reason why Icy Veins assumes there were a lot of boosts. Because in the end, for the top 1%, you needed around 4,000 rating. I think it was actually a bit more in the end. And for that, you needed to start running those level 21 keys. And accordingly, people really pushed again, just like with 16s. That's kind of the benchmark or the quota you need for the 3.4 thousand people pushed again for that. And also with 21s, where you really have to say there was probably quite a bit of boosting going on, because this number increased very, very rapidly at times. And very unusual that there were suddenly so many keys in this category. That was more than 17s, 18s, 19s, and almost 20s combined. So because of that, you can at least get a bit of an idea that a lot of boosting was going on. But oh well, that's just how it is in the end. Yeah, what do you all think about it overall? My personal conclusion, I stand by it. The first season of Midnight was good. I definitely enjoyed it. Sure, things can always be better, but compared to the War Within, which wasn't exactly my personal favorite, I have to be honest, I had more fun. I was very, very satisfied, and now I'm looking forward to the second season. As I said, feel free to write your opinion in the comments. And with that, I'd say see you again in the next video. Until then, have a wonderful time, take care, and see you. Ade.